and welcome to the Big Match Preview. I'm Stevie, your host for today's match preview at Arsenal tomorrow on Sunday the 22nd of May 2022. Everton obviously upbeat with the win against Crystal Palace at Goodison Park, and I think most fans are finally relieved. I'm delighted to be joined by my younger brother, Basil. Basil, great to have you on the show.
How are you doing, Steve?
Yeah, good, thanks. A little break from your architecture degree. Let's get stuck in. The match, the bounce that fans and players and management, everyone has from that Crystal Palace game going into this Arsenal game. How do you think that will have an impact on the match?
I think, we can play with freedom, can't we? I can see in just the tone and expression on your face the difference between how we were going into previous matches as to now. There's a complete sense of detachment from the stress that we were suffering for weeks and weeks, and I think that's going to allow a lot of freedom from us going into this. I mean, how that pans out, I don't know with Arsenal, which we'll come on to, what they need from the game, but it's going to be tension versus stress, tension versus no tension.
Yeah, I think there's an element where the pressure is definitely off Everton for this game, and the pressure is on this man. Maybe not that man, but certainly his lookalike, Mikel Arteta, the former Everton midfielder, not Captain Black, but he's got his work out. Arsenal have got to win the game, and they've also got to hope that Spurs lose. Spurs have got an easier fixture, albeit they are away from home, but they're playing Norwich. So that puts the impetus back on the home side, David.
It does, doesn't it? I mean, I'll just comment generally. I'm not sure whether Norwich will be able to stop Spurs from winning there, especially when their season's over. I mean, the only thing they've got to play for is pure pride of it being their last game. And am I right in saying it's at Norwich? So, I mean, it's a home game for them, so we'll have to see with that. I mean, Arsenal have got no control in this situation, and they've only let themselves get into this situation by being so poor in recent weeks.
They have. They've lost a lot of games, Arsenal, considering where they are. But I think that's the nature of the league this year. Lots of teams not necessarily drawing games. But back on to Everton. Obviously, everyone's feeling good about the result on Thursday night, and it's just only around the corner to the next game. Not much time in between to prepare. Lampard saying that his side can now relax, throw the shackles off, and get going in the right way. There's a lot to play for, but besides the fact that this is the last game, I'm sure we will want to end on a high. Lampard is already starting to think about putting a more robust squad, he said the other day, together. He says, I will relax more, and I don't mean that in a light-hearted way, because I understand that Arsenal and Tottenham are in a battle, and we'll go and do our absolute best to approach the game in the right way. At the same time, we've not had that luxury. Others saw us playing against Brentford and then against Palace. There's something nice about relaxing. But basically, he's saying that players that haven't had opportunities will have an opportunity in this match. And we'll get on to team news, but Lampard must be one relieved man.
I think he must be, as you say. I mean, there's not much more to it. He came in, we were sinking down the table, we were heading for a disaster. Burnley started picking up results. You're thinking the unthinkable. We're in the relegation zone, and the last sort of 6 to 8 matches, it's just all kind of gone up a notch. He's kind of stumbled across a formation that worked, especially against the sort of bigger sides and away from home. And I think the last few games he's really struggled to get that formation to apply against the so-called lesser teams. And I think it's a huge learning curve for him, what he's seen over the last 6 weeks, and how to prevent this from happening again.
Definitely. I mean, Everton's form has actually been quite good, just generally. They did lose, of course, at Anfield, and they did lose against Brentford, although I think that Everton were in good control in that game. I was at Goodison for that. And I think if it wasn't for that controversial decision, I think Everton were well on their way to victory. But wins against Chelsea, Leicester, and Palace have really changed the situation around. And there was a point when we looked dead and buried with 5 points off the bottom, and now it's going to be good to just look in at the other fixtures and see what might have happened with Burnley and Leeds, and keep an eye on the top. But I think we need to focus on our own game. I think that we need to carry this momentum forward. So we'll get straight into the team news. And David, you've prepared what you think is the likely graphic. I mean, how many changes do you think are going to be made?
It's really hard to figure out what will actually happen. I mean, I've obviously gone for Pickford there. Just, you can't wipe the whole side out. I think we've got to go into this game looking to, I don't want to say play for a draw, but at least pick up a point so that we, with Southampton away at Leicester, and Leicester couldn't claim an 8th placed finish, which I think they'll be desperate to at home, considering the season they've had. I think there's a chance to go above Southampton. We've got superior goal difference. So I'm going fairly strong, but these players have played 3 games in 7 days. So, we've got to rotate. I brought Kenny in because I think Coleman's been excellent, but he's, 3 games, it's a lot for him, and he's got to be tracking their wingers. They've got quick wingers. They've got Saka. And yeah, I think Arsenal are quite fluid, and I think with just a few fresh legs would be helpful. And then I've kept the other 3 the same, but there's an argument for Godfrey. I don't know what you think about that, because Lampard's been saying Godfrey's been working his socks off to try and get involved. And I think for him to not get any minutes on the pitch after working so hard for 2 weeks to try and get match fit would be slightly disorientating. But we don't want him to get injured. And then I've thrown Tom Davies in because he's not played for ages. And who else plays there? I mean, Decore was excellent, but can he play another 90 minutes? I'm sure he could, but there's nothing to play for in effect. So Davies there, and then giving Dele Alli his chance. Iwobi's been excellent, and it's against his former club, so I'd like to see how that pans out. And then you've got Damari Gray just in for Gordon. Gray caused them all sorts of trouble at the home reverse fixture. He scored the winner, cutting in from the left, actually, and he had a few good efforts. So I'd give him a chance after his cameo the other night. And then Richie, if he's fit, I mean, we don't know. He had an ice pack on his leg the other day, so we don't know. And then obviously DCL could be making his last appearance against his next employers. Let's hope that's not the case. But I put him up front. He's in a vein of form. He scored his first 3 games of the season, and will he score in the final game to make it 3-3 with his last 3 games?
I mean, you touched on there's nothing to play for. Everton can still finish 15th, and there's money for each place. But I think that the away form can be carried forward into next season. I think your lineup is quite solid. But in terms of whether Godfrey comes back in, personally, I don't think he's going to be risked. I think any player that's going to be, I think that with the injuries, with the situation that we had, he might have been risked if we needed to get some points from this game. And it was obviously a short turnaround. I think you'll probably wrap up Godfrey and let him sit on the sidelines for this game, unless we get an unfortunate injury. You've obviously gone for 4 at the back, and it's been experimented with Iwobi on the right, but I think we've seen the best of him in centre midfield, and he is playing away at his former game, and I hope he has a great game, and that I can't see him being dropped. And I agree that Dele on that performance deserves a start against former rivals Arsenal. DCL, whether he leaves, I think that it's unlikely. He didn't look like a player who was leaving the club for me in the scenes. You can sort of tell by people's body language, but of course, you never know what's going to be offered and what happens in the summer. Richarlison's the player for me that he's performed so well that maybe there might be some temptation to actually give him a break, but it's the last game of the season.
I just don't know who do you play on wide areas. If Damari Gray starts on one side, you say Richie gets a rest or he's out. Do you bring in Lewis Dobbin? Do you bring in El Ghazi, who's obviously going back to Villa and not really going to be coming back, I would imagine?
Well, I think Lampard, in his comments, is committed to trying to win the game. He's not going to go out. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, this is the first time we're going to be playing with the pressure off for a very long time. I think it's this year. We probably even have to go back further into last year to find a game when there wasn't pressure on Everton to win, because the consistency was so poor. But actually, it's only Liverpool that have battered Everton when it comes to winning points from losing positions. Everton have picked up 15 from that, Liverpool 17. And now it seems that there's a really good chance to give Dele a good run out, and a lot of fans were very impressed with his second half performance. He sort of galvanized the spirit of the team, but it was very much a team effort on Thursday. But Everton have not been good on their travels, and that might be why the bookmakers make us 8-1 outsiders to win the game. I mean, there's got to be some value in that. But yeah, remains to be seen who starts. Richarlison scored 6, assisted 2 in his last 10, so he is on top form, and it would be a shame if we had to drop him. But he has, in some games, I believe, carried forward the team in the absence of any form from Calvert-Lewin. Really good to see that lineup from you, David. Any sort of observations regarding the Arsenal team? Who do you think's the main players to look out for?
Who's that? I think based on what I'm looking at from when Arsenal played Newcastle the other day, they've got Saka, who's a real threat. He's always been a threat all season. He's had a great season. So be watching him. He plays on the right, so be up against Myelenko, Smith Rowe, Odegaard. They're good. They're good players. I think they've got quite a young squad and they've been quite inconsistent. So I don't know whether that's got something to play into it. They need a bit more experience. They've got Xhaka in there, but he's got a red card in him, hasn't he? Maybe we'll finally get one of the decisions that go for us now that it doesn't mean anything at all, and it will just put the drama on Arsenal. It will all go the other way. Be interesting to see, but there's no one in that Arsenal side that I'm overly fearing. They are a good unit, but I don't look at them and think, oh, we're going to get absolutely battered here. Even if we were playing quite, how we were 3 weeks ago, I'd be going there thinking we might be able to get a draw 3 weeks ago. Now the pressure's off. I just don't know what we can do there.
I think it's pretty unpredictable, isn't it? Everton are 4-1. I think for the 4-1 for the draw is pretty good for me. I know Arsenal have to win it.
I've put that team out, but really it could be totally different. I mean, we don't know what the fitness is of Mina. We don't know how the players have recovered from the other night. You've got Alan, who's not made an appearance for weeks and weeks, who's apparently got a hernia issue and isn't being risked. So you've got players. We just don't know the full availability of the squad. But
Arsenal have got no injury concerns as far as what we read. Lacazette, Pepe, and Martinelli could all return to the lineup. Now, the other day we had a peak number of about 400 live watchers, and for some reason the stream dropped. We are blaming StreamYard for a few hiccups, but of course we are disappointed that we didn't get to show some of the comments on the other day. So I think that it's only justice that we do go through a few comments on this quick preview. We have comments coming in. We'd like to see Lewis Dobbin up front. I mean, surely there's got to be some value in taking a look at him maybe in the second half, depending on how the game goes.
Yeah, of course. No,
I think Everton have got to try and find the depth in squad. I think it's really cost us this season. Now, there's been a lot of comments about what's been happening off the pitch. We'll get into those in a minute, but let's focus on the players. And Hugh says I think he's leaning towards not playing Tom Davies. He thinks Van der Beek should play. What's the situation with Van der Beek? Does he have to return to Man United?
It just goes back to United. They've got Ten Hag coming in, who managed him at Ajax and had a very successful team. And I just don't know whether, if it was any other manager, I think they'd be saying, let's sell him. But with it being Ten Hag, we just don't know. So I just see that he's going to be preserved in terms of not picking up an injury and he goes back. But I'd like to see Van der Beek, but he's not our player. And there's at the moment, if we want him, we're going to have to pay like 30 million. Do we have the finances for that? So it's unlikely. So I see him going back. And that's why I don't put him in. And I don't put Alan in because he's got an injury. And if Decore's played 3 games, maybe Decore has to play. I mean, we just don't have the numbers. We've got Delph, I've seen a few people shouting for the kid. What's his name? I can't think of it. We've got a good kid who plays in central midfield, but he's not had any minutes for us before. His name's completely escaped me, but it is the opportunity to throw someone in like that. I mean, Davies is going to be here next year. I don't see him going, so I think what's the point not playing someone who's going to be here?
I think there's a method to that. I think Lampard's sussed out that he doesn't want to become dependent, maybe, on a player that could be on his way back to United. And of course, we can't really speak for Everton's ability to go into the transfer market, but alarm bells will be ringing after what happened this season. Yes, we've had a number of injuries, but there's just been a lack of strength and depth, especially considering that we've not had long runs in cup competitions, with the exception of obviously the quarterfinal of the FA Cup, which wasn't exactly a long run, with matches being played over one leg. So moving on to off-field matters, obviously, much has been made about the legal action that Leeds and Burnley are suddenly wanting to take over Everton. That's kind of been trying to take a little bit of the shine off the fact Everton have survived, and it was looking very unlikely. I think Ryan is still promising to dress all in pink and wear a pink hat if Everton survive. So we'll be expecting to see that at some point, maybe on the post-Arsenal match or something near you. But I'll definitely be holding him to that. But yeah, Dave raises that point, as do many others. I think that it's upsetting to see that we have such envious, people are becoming obsessed with what Everton are doing off the field. But what do you make of all of this?
Yeah, I mean, it's been ongoing for a while, hasn't it? I mean, there was talks about 6-8 weeks ago about the points deduction, and now you've got this, and it's interesting. It has been released after we've been declared as safe, rather than in the middle of the pressure period. I'm not sure whether that strikes that Burnley and Leeds are just panicking and trying to clutch at anything to that could help them at this situation, because what they're questioning is the integrity of the signings that we made.
Is that not just a distraction from their own matches?
Well, they shouldn't get too caught up in it, because the chances are they won't be able to do anything anyway. They've got to concentrate on winning their own games. The chances are whoever wins their game will stay up, because the other one's not likely to win as well. You never know in a one-match shootout who's going to stay up, though, out of those two games. We'll have to see how
What's your prediction? Do you think Burnley will do it? They're at home.
I think they will draw, and I think Leeds will struggle to win away at Brentford. And even if they get a point, it will not be enough.
Yeah, I think Leeds will draw tomorrow. I fancy Burnley to do the business.
If you told me Leeds just suddenly turned up and won, I wouldn't bat an eyelid. I wouldn't bat an eyelid if either of those teams got a good result, because it's a one-match game. All your energy going into it, all or nothing, and anything can happen. You pile on a bit of pressure, you might nick a goal. You just don't know. It could go down to the last 10 minutes with both games 0-0, and everything on the line.
Thankfully, we're not going to be involved in that. Going to see if Jan can come into the stream. He's had some difficulties and missed out on obviously most of our chat. Before we go to your score predictions, I'm going to see if we can bring him in. Maybe he's got a trick up his sleeve for us. Jan, can you hear us now? Sound working all okay?
Yeah, just about. I had to bump the Chrome off Firefox.
We're getting a bit of feedback. Have you got this on twice? We know we're popular, but certainly gets the viewing figures up. But while Jan's connecting for hopefully a final hurrah, Basil, give us your score prediction for the match tomorrow.
It's impossible to predict it. I think I'm gonna go. Well, the thing is, Arsenal either win the game or draw the game. But I think I'm gonna go for a 1-1.
1-1. That's sitting on the fence. You can get good odds on that at the moment. I think that everyone's backing Arsenal to win this. Jan, can you hear us now?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear. Finally, for the first time in about half an hour.
Sorry.
Yeah, well, we're gonna get your score prediction.
Oh, crikey. I mean, have you guys already talked about the team and who's fit and well for Arsenal and for us and everything?
That's all been and gone, I'm afraid.
Oh,
But
bugger. So I'm in at the deep end.
He's got
I'm
to
going
make
to
a
go.
decision
I'm going
on
to
the
go 2-1 for Everton.
so a 1-2, so you can get very good odds on that as well. Because the bookies have just got Everton 8-1. I've been looking at just to win the game, which I think is very generous. But obviously, Everton have not been playing well away from home. Jan, have you got any additional observations in terms of how the match might go tomorrow? I mean, we've gone through a lot of things on the stream, which I'm sure you'll watch back. But is there anything that you want to particularly get across, having sort of finally got over maybe, or just got back from from the other day?
Yeah. Well, I think honestly that we'll play with a certain amount of freedom, having just proven our resilience in the face of almost impending doom and relegation and dismal performances. That I think the players will play with a certain amount of freedom that they haven't had up to this point. As people were saying, Frank's had a very pragmatic and limited approach, and it's just been basic football. And I think that might give the players a bit of freedom and really sort of threaten Arsenal because they've been up and down. They've not been fully consistent in their strength on the pitch. I mean, the match against Spurs showed that. So I think if we go with DCL up front and Richie just wants to have one last game, either to guarantee another contract or to sort of see who's going to offer. I don't know what you guys think about that. I think it could be. I mean, Arsenal have always got a goal in them, so I think it's possible to say 2-1, and it's not beyond the realms of possibility. Of course, it could
Absolutely
be
not.
to Arsenal.
And what we know now from this, obviously Everton picking up more points from losing positions than any other team other than Liverpool. We know that if Everton were 1-0 down at half time, that they could turn it around, which is something that we might not be able to have said on Thursday. I'm going to put you on the spot. Have you got anything that you haven't broadcast in terms of the way of poetry for us, or anything that you can surprise us with?
I've got, well, it'll all be non-Everton poetry, but no, I think I've, I don't know. There's the one the other
Well, the
day.
match was poetry, wasn't it? The whole game was poetry.
Yeah.
Have you prepared anything? Are you working on something from the other day at the moment?
Well, no, I wrote something. I don't know if you guys have seen it. I wrote something and recorded it the morning after the match. I went over into Liverpool for an appointment, and I was over there, and I thought, well, I'll just stop outside Dixie, the statue, and just record one there. And I don't know if you guys have seen it. I put it up on Twitter.
The
That was
BBC
that match reaction.
picked it up, didn't they? Yeah.
Well, apparently I was caught outside the ground, and they sort of talked to me for about 10 minutes, and then just decided to drop in that one question where it sounded like I was saying,
"Yeah, about 4 seconds."
I totally understand it.
Yeah, they gave you about 4 seconds. They were winding up, but that's clever editing. Is there anything that you? Okay, could you read that out for us? Because there's going to be a lot of people that haven't heard that.
Yeah, of course.
It's going to be a couple of minutes. We've been trying to get Jan on the stream for about 45 minutes, and in our sound test, it didn't go so well. He couldn't hear us, but here he is, and hopefully we'll get more of him after the match tomorrow. But yeah, if you'd like to end our stream on a beautiful piece, and then we'll see all of our fans tomorrow after the final whistle.
Yeah, excellent. This is my reflections from that night in 22. We may have had some doubts last night. I know I had my fears that we wouldn't rise up and fight after 27 years, so long living in the shadow and hiding in the shade. But inspired, emboldened by the fans, I'm proud of how they played. We pulled a win out of the bag from the jaws of certain loss and steered our ship to harbour despite the albatross that circled high and eyed our fate and watched our spiraled fall. As moods fell low, 2 goals down, a funeral in the hall. When half-time came inside the ground, I took a maudlin walk and racked my brain. What would Frank say? What was the half-time talk? When eagles picked their prey and climbed and struck the target true, how could the boys in royal blue find reason to pull through? The smoke bombs now forgotten, with no cause for such elation, just half a game and impending doom and certain relegation. Sat side by side as dad and lad, my father felt my pain. He'd seen the glory, I'd got none, yet still we go the game. 10 minutes gone, a spark of hope to liven up the team, some wonderful composure and a strike from Michael Keane. Relentlessly we passed and probed and built and hoped for more. Then joy unfettered filled the ground. Richarlison had scored. What's happening? It can't be true. What's this supposed to mean? From deep within the hearts of men, the spirit of Dixie Dean. The spark became a candle to a powder keg, then bang! At least we'd go down swinging now, the mighty Goodison gang. Wondering if Graham Stewart watched on with Barry Horn as the mood became expectant. Could we channel 94? And soon all breaths were drawn in quick, and fingers crossed, I'll bet, when Calvert-Lewin launched himself and headed in the net. Then Goodison erupted wild as if we'd won a cup. The magic goal secured our place. The Blues are staying up. 1,878 wins in the top flight. It's written in the stars that we'd reach it on that night. Now words cannot do justice to that game in 22. I was there at Goodison and cheered the boys in blue. To everyone watching, everyone who was there, everyone who watched the game, followed it on streams, on the radio, it's been a season of highs and lows, and a lot of lows. We've had our hearts and hopes built up, and people have often wondered, why are you running on the pitch? People wouldn't celebrate second because it's that disappointment. It's like getting a draw when you're losing, or it feels like a win, or drawing when you're 2 goals up. It feels like a loss. When you're so close to that oblivion, and we've had such a catalogue of mistakes and errors and so much false hope with this manager will do it, or this signing, or everything's going to be a step up, and to be consistently disappointed by managers, by players, by things on and off the pitch, by poor VAR decisions, by, as I say, living in the shadow of an incredibly successful rival and neighbouring team. Nothing detracts from their success, but to go through what we've gone through for such a barren stretch, and to think that it was all heading in one direction, and it's not. And we've got more Premier League football, and I want to see the atmosphere that we've had continue on and get behind the boys in blue. Whatever questions we've got, keep them off the pitch, keep them away from the match day, get behind every single player and cheer on the fucking Toffees.
We didn't want to steal the limelight. We left you in the spotlight. And I think it was poetic. It was excellent. Jan, Basil, thank you so much. We'll see you guys hopefully post-match tomorrow for an Everton victory at the Emirates Stadium. For tomorrow, it's a 4:00 kickoff, as all the games are. If you've been watching, commenting, subscribing, make sure you share the word, follow Everton. We'll be back for the new season, of course. And there'll be lots of content in between where we're looking at transfer news, hopefully an odd bit of poetry, and of course we'll be looking at the impact of the season. I'm sure there'll be a full postmortem on where it didn't go so well, but thankfully we won't be saying it went wrong, because Everton are on the up. From me, Stevie, and from the team at Follow Everton, we wish you a good night.